All right, I was just saying to everybody that I put a folder in the discussion area for today. And then I realized as I was making that folder that it would probably be good to leave that folder open for next week and finals week. So anything you want me to look at today, go ahead and put your files in there today. I saw that there's a couple things there already. And next week and then for finals too. So remember that these weeks are largely hand puppet, sock puppet weeks. And it's me making sure that I'm giving you as much feedback, much critique on whatever it is you're showing me as possible, just to make it awesome. And remember that that includes everything. I don't think anybody needs to go back and redo their pixie dust or anything, but I know that there weren't perfect 100% scores on your tornadoes. And I also know that people are sick of doing tornadoes. And it's a weird thing for me too. I think that with the concept of why this class is even there, just in terms of aesthetics or art or the shape of the effects that you're drawing, the small details of the stuff that you're drawing. The tornado certainly has a bit of it in there, but it just, I think repeating it and getting the lightning in there and in the tornado or the volcano one, it's just like, I'm still kind of thinking about what to do with it. I know it's not the most fun, but it's also not the most difficult either. So, all right, so let's. All right, this is Simran.
Good morning.
Hello.
This is just like a rough animation.
It's a what?
It's just like a rough of what I was doing. I
No,
didn't have,
that's good. I'm just thinking about it. I'm studying it. So there's a couple of things. Okay, so let me draw for you. Once again, I think that there's a really good advantage about being able to draw right on top of your layout, your composition. And at the same time, we miss that idea of you actually being, me actually being right there with you. But that's okay. We will do our very best here. All right, so a couple of things that I think that would make this just completely more awesome. And you might be on this already, so apologize if you're already thinking about things and you're just kind of.
yeah, there's some animations that I didn't do. Like you said, the orb exploding and turning to pixie dust and then crashing into the glass. I still didn't do that part. I just did it. Yeah.
So I think that you've got a really nice technical layout for your 2-point perspective, but there's an error right here.
Mm-hmm.
I think that you would see this.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But you would not see this.
Mm, okay.
So I'm going to use white to see if I can make those go away. Oh, look at that. How clever of me. I should get a degree in cleverness.
It's like there's a reason you're an art teacher.
Something like that. Geez, oh man. You know, and then when we do erase that, we see that the vanishing point is right there. So you could give like a tiny sliver, and I think that it'll look better. Just a little bit right there. I think it'll look better. Your windowsill is really deep. That's okay, but you have to be consistent. So if this one is here, this thick, and this one, but I think this one is probably better. So trim so that that is more in line with it. Ooh, let me do that white thing again. All right, and I think that what you got is you've got the intention of the glass being on the outside, which is fine, which is good. And you've got the little raindrops falling that are actually on the window. So remember that you can do a couple of things. One is that the actual raindrop can be longer on a window. And you can vary this up so that if you've got some of these that are just moving little drops, but you could also have some that are just a little bit longer, just for variety.
Okay.
And I know what that means. That means that you have to animate this stupid thing coming in and going all the way off. So maybe just a couple of them.
Okay.
And then the other thing that you might find interesting is that if you have this kind of thing going, you can also do like a longer little puddle. And I might have
Yeah, you did.
said something like this last week. And so if you just do like maybe 2 of them, just to get a variety of the thing moving. And remember that this is not anything more than just starting them from off the window and then getting them to go off the window at the bottom. And so they're not really doing anything. One of the advantages about drawing any shape like this, the little droplets or the longer droplets or these little, I don't even know what you would call them, these little rivers of water, is that you are drawing them. Don't copy and paste them, just redraw them and it'll wiggle around. The idea of a trace back is that you try to get it as precise as you can, but it does add like this an inherent motion to it. So just a couple of things to think about it. As long as you're going to do that, you're probably obligated to do a couple on each side. I think it would just add to the variety and to the niceness of it. I also think that this is the rain that's hitting the window and actually moving on the window. But there's also a place where you can get probably just a few little.
Okay, just add like a variety of rain.
Just to like make it as awesome as possible, right?
Mm.
And so these are just like maybe a foot away from the window, and the lighting in here is the thing that is lighting it up. You wouldn't see anything else. That's about what you would see. If you wanted to be kind of interesting about it, it could be kind of cool that there might be a leak. If it's really raining at that far out there, you might want to try having water come down the windowsill and then kind of pool on the ground right here. It might be kind of cool. It's up to you. All right, and so you know you're going to get in trouble with this steam thing here.
Yeah.
So, and I think you have room for this. So let's just kind of think about it for a moment. The first thing I think is I think you should just bring this up. Just bring it up a little bit so that you can put the little fire underneath it.
Okay.
And this is easy. This little Bunsen burner fire right here, this is super easy. And it doesn't have to be anything more than this. You can have like a couple of little embers going up. But you know, this fire sequence is just kind of like, make sure that you get the shape looking okay. And you don't really have to do anything about nodes. All you have to do is kind of just wiggle it around. If anything, this little shape right here turns into this. This little shape right here turns into these two nodes if you want. And I think that what you can probably do is, I picked red here just so that it would show up against the background. And I did not pick blue because I already have blue over here, but this could be blue. Bunsen burners usually are using propane. And so try to maybe pick some sort of blue color here and give just kind of like a little disc where the fire is actually coming out of. All right, and then let's just make this the centerpiece. As long as this is in the middle, I think that what you can do is you can kind of think about a couple of things. You've already done this kind of smoke for the volcano. So let's try to do something that's more wispy. Little Tim Burton flare there at the end. So try something like this. And then I can't use the eraser tool here. Ooh, but I could use white. Because once you've got this thing kind of locked down here, now would be the time to go back in there and kind of start trimming these crossovers out. And then that allows you to dissipate the steam, whatever that is, just a little more. And what that does is it adds a little bit of integrity to the direction of where this little steam, this little vapor is coming from and going to. So that if you just tried to draw this, you might lose that concept of where these things were spindling together from. So, and I am recording this right now, so you can kind of, or you can screen grab it right now.
Okay.
But you know, something like that.
Okay.
And the other thing about doing it this way is that it makes it easy for you to figure out where all the little pieces go. So it looks interesting right there, right? I mean, you could even take it up a couple of notches by putting, this volume here was a little bit too big. So I'm like putting little holes in it. But then it's the same theory. It's the same node for node, right? These two nodes go to here. And then it goes to here. And then it takes a wild jump over here. So it's the same thing, the same basic idea. I'm not quite sold on these little holes right here. I think that what might work better and in concept with the shape, the aesthetics that you've got going, it might be more interesting to kind of break it up this way. You know, something like that. So you break up the exterior shape. All right, and then I noticed that you want your glass to be broken in the background here. I think that that's fine. I think that then you just want to end with like shards of glass on the floor. Your little node is it gonna do anything else after it breaks the glass?
Not really. It was just gonna explode.
Okay. So I think that you should, at least in this area right here, I should not use purple. in this area right here of the glass, from here to here to here to here, and these 4 panes of glass, just make sure that you do the white, black, white flash of lightning out here.
Okay.
You can even do a little mini lightning if you want. You know, even something this size makes sense. And if you want it to be eerie, remember that you can do white, black, white, black, white. You can continue this. There's no standard. You need to pick what this is, what you want this to be. And remember that the variety here can also be white, black, white, black, white, gray, white. And then if you start, like if this is like a blue, like a deep blue, you know, then the black really reads better. It reads a lot better. And so even this sequence, and this is on 1s. And then when you do that, remember that the other thing about making this awesome is that kind of think about where that lightning was in terms of your perspective grid, and that the lightning is probably, well, it's visible. If it's visible in the window, right, it's right there. And if it is right there, then all of the things that the quote unquote the lightning sees can take on a highlight. So that would mean like just this edge of the microscope,
like a white bear.
This kind of thing, this bit of the cabinet, you know, anything. And so that's the white. And then you reverse that. And so instead of doing just black, you put black everywhere, and then this is white. And then instead of doing just white everywhere, you reverse it. You put white everywhere, and then this stuff is black. And then that makes it more awesome, even on this thing, right? And you know, it could be a little tricky if you were going to try to do it on the smoke. So I'll let you go with that one. Okay, so you've got, so you don't have to do water dripping right here. You were talking about water.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, there's not enough. But you know, you are looking at this space right here. What could you think about that space right there?
You were saying having the water overflow from the sink and dripping it over and making.
Oh yeah, but you're not doing that.
Yeah.
I'm thinking. I'm thinking. I think it might be a little bit too cliche to have something happen here. Yeah, I mean, the reason why I'm even thinking about it, it's because it's in the foreground. It's right in the middle of our face.
Should I just like add a sign on the table to make it look less like?
No, that might be a little too cliche and goofy as well. We keep thinking about it. You probably need a table back here or something. Maybe, and the table, it's like underneath the cabinet, right? So put like a little table back there. I don't know, just keep working on these little bits and pieces, and we'll talk about this area here. I don't think I want to direct you to do anything here. The only thing that kind of struck my face when we first looked at this is that you've drawn this with very straight lines, and it's very tight and everything, but there's not that many lines. And one thing that you might be able to do is go through here and make it more like a drawing by tracing everything back. with a hand done pencil line. It's something, it's just an option for you. It's just do a test and see if it works. And if you do that, you might be able to find some way to put like a stain here, or to make it more painterly and make it look like, you know, there was like stuff happening. It's old. I don't know. It's just, this is an option. I'll put a little question mark right there. All right. Anything else that you were planning that you're just not showing me yet?
I think that's it for now.
Okay. Do you want to take a screenshot of that?
Yeah, I will. 1 second. Okay, got it.
Got it?
Yep.
All right, Charlie. All right, so let's play this. Oh, hold on. All right, so I think I remember talking about the idea of looking at the magic that happens, the explosion being more like magic. And I think you're about halfway there. So let's talk about just the nature of this shape right here. For one thing, I think it can be slower. If you're not going to do a traditional explosion, Charlie, you're here, right?
Yeah.
You're here. Okay. I think that if it could be a little slow, I mean, not like really, really slow, but but think about the verbs. It's a magical explosion. Sorry, this doesn't draw very well. All right, it's a magical explosion. So I think that what you can do is kind of straighten out these lines, and you can just kind of think about them being less organic and more plasma. So try to attain like a really, really straight line here. And then I think that what might really work, and so especially with the notion of this being slower, is to get it to spin counterclockwise. So as this thing is growing outwards, then get it to spin as well. And so just you could, if you want to, try a copy and paste here, where you go from a radial center, and then this arm just gets bigger, and then this arm gets bigger, goes off the screen. And I think that I'm doing this kind of rotational degree thing here intentionally, because I think that if you go over 10 or 15 degrees, it becomes a little hard to manage in terms of which way the thing is moving, because you want to do one more. And if you try to do it too fast, it might end up going backwards. Oh yeah, I learned that the other day, that there's a new thing in Zoom. You can Command Z in your annotation.
So about how many frames should the explosion be?
So what I'm drawing right here, if I was timing this out, I would probably time this out on 2s just to begin with.
Okay.
Just to start with that. And then I would do one more in pink, where this arc right here just moves a little bit to the counterclockwise. This moves a little bit. And at this point, I think that it's okay if you, oops. Are thinking more about the overall effect as opposed to just the timing.
Okay.
Because I think what this is it's like again, it's a magical explosion. And from our explosion week, one of the things that you could do here is take that notion now of repeating the hole in the middle. And so when this pink one happens, it starts to open up a new plasma center. And it doesn't have to be the same number of spines. It can just be, so this is a hole in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm doing this just to be didactic so that you can actually see it. And then that spins as well. So if you're sequencing, and I think that you could probably use a first one. So from the tip of this little thing that he's shaking, if it starts out as the first one that we drew is green, I'll do one that's just in blue that kind of starts out backwards. So it went maybe this way. And one thing that you might be able to even do here is, I'm going to just color this in so you can see it, is not be so obvious about this start, and that it might be kind of fun if you get the, this is a slower magical explosion, but in your mind, you are thinking plasma. That's the thing that we kind of mention here and there when we're doing effects. When I say, if you're doing bubbling water, you should think water. If you're doing steam, think steam. You know, that's the whole trick in anything you're animating. If you're doing a raccoon walking around, you've got to be the raccoon. So when you're thinking this magical, slower plasma explosion, one option would be here is to put a sputter. And so it doesn't happen so quickly, right? The idea would be, is in the narrative, if he had put whatever of these chemicals inside here, in any kind of B movie, the explosion would have happened immediately, intensely. But for him, for your character, something's not happening. The reaction's not happening quite as fast as he would have hoped it to be. So get him to shake it and then sputter it. And so have this little idea of this sequence be that there's like a little star that comes out of it, and it rotates a little bit bigger. And then it just kind of dissipates. It just pops. It doesn't work, right? Do you see what I mean right there? And
Yeah.
then he does, so in animation there, and really in film, there's a magic to doing things in threes. And so if you start with this one, so this is the first one that he does. So he shakes it and it goes, and it just kind of pops and does nothing. The second one, you might do this thing where it kind of, just from the lip of it, you get this like little snake thing that comes up. And so the sequence would be, is that there's like a little magical snake, and it comes out and then it breaks away from the top of it, and it becomes like a little orb, just kind of hovers there for a minute, and it pops as well. It's really simple, right? And then the third one is this. So it's a really cool thing in cinema. And now that I've said that, you can look for this in cartoons and in film, where someone has come out of film school and they've studied the idea of things happening in threes. It's kind of a thing that's written in the bylaws of film. But try this, and what that does is it gives you a little bit more time in your timeline as well. And also it becomes the centerpiece, which is correct, of your effect. It is, you kind of have to wrap your head around it just a little bit, but that's okay. I think that this is not that difficult of a thing to manage. I think that you could certainly pull it off. All right, and then so this is your steam here, and I'm not liking your steam, and you knew I wasn't going to like this. So let's just do the same thing again. I think that if you just kind of bring it over into this area, and we'll do the same thing. We'll cross it over. Right, and I think that you can do one of a couple of different things. Is that you can keep these things connected together this time. So that's one variation, and the other variation is that you could try, just like we were doing a moment ago, by, now the white is not going to work, and I don't have gray, and I can't erase it. I mean, you could try that where you break these up. And remember too that the reason why I'm doing this is just nodes. You animate the nodes, you animate from here to there. And then out here it dissipates. It just kind of breaks apart and dissolves into the air. So yeah, use something more like this. And then in your timeline, I think that you kind of want to think about making sure that not all of this is happening at once. And so I think that you need to give your cat character something to do in the timeline. And your animation, so I think that you can manage this. So in your timeline, let your cat be putting something that's on the table here. And it doesn't always have to be a liquid thing, even though you've got the chemistry lab going. It can be just like a pellet. It could be like a little stick of titanium. It could be a little stick of iridium or something like that, that he uses his left hand here to put inside the beaker, which is down here.
Okay.
So that's just happening. So he just kind of bends his arm up a little bit and kind of just puts this thing in there. He drops it in there, and then as soon as that happened, there's like some wiggly special effects happening. That's happening here, and all this time this is happening. And so your audience can really focus on what this steam is looking like, because that's an important part of your final. And this could be easily, this is cycling here. This smoke is cycling, and this could easily be 120 frames or 5 seconds. And then this happens, right? Then that happens, then the magical explosion happens. And the other stuff is just cycling in the background. I think that one of the ways of kind of thinking about this is you don't have to get the curtains to cycle the whole time. So if the curtains are on top, they don't have to be cycling the whole time. This is the curtain cycling, right? I think that what might be more interesting is if you you think about the narrative. And so one thing that might be really nice is if you do like a really soft cycle on the curtains. And one thing that you can do to pull that off is to take the same animation that you've got and put it on 8s. And then put a pause right here where there's nothing. Before your character puts the titanium in the beaker. And then there's nothing. So they were moving around a little bit. So just isolate this. There's nothing happening with the curtains. And then as soon as this explosion happens and you've got all this, then the curtains can go into their full cycling wiggle. All right. Is there anything else here that you were thinking of that you just haven't plotted out yet?
No, I think everything is there. For the like final week, do you want this all to be in color, or can
Yeah.
it stay this kind of gray tone? Just because, you know,
Well, for
I'm
you, I think that your aesthetic would be is that it could be kind of more interesting if it was film noir, if it is
Yeah.
just black and white. And that is your version of color. You know what I mean?
yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be pink and green and purple, you know, that I think it might be more interesting if you pick it as more film noir. Be careful of tangents.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
familiar with tangents. So yeah, you've got one happening right here. Be careful of your tangents. Yeah, so what ends up happening for you is that it becomes more of a narrative. And so in saying that, what I think that you want to pay attention to is making sure that he is alive. As long as you're in animation, follow the rules of if a character blinks, that means they're alive. If their eyes are looking around, that means they're thinking. And so I think that you want to make sure that he's at least a little bit alive. You know, he doesn't have to be on 2s, he doesn't have to be even on 4s, but the action of him putting the little rod inside his beaker is good, and that does mean he's alive, and shaking it means he's alive. But you may want to try a slight head turn. Just a slight head turn, something to let us know that he's thinking and he's alive. Okay, I think that should get you there. Keep working. You want to take a screenshot of that?
Yeah. Thanks.
Especially this timing, if that's your narrative. And for whatever it is worth, animators used to work like this. There was a thing called beat sheets. And in the 1920s, 1930s, there were a lot of experimental animations that were being synced to music. And so the animator would write out what they were thinking. And so we were at 120 seconds here. And so this is like the explosion here would be maybe another 20 frames or something. And then whatever happens. So when that happens, when this plasma happens here, maybe something happens with the steam, and the steam is not, I think it would be incorrect to have this magic happening here and then just have this steam continue to be cycling. I think that once this magic has happened and this explosion has happened, change the aesthetic on your steam to just be more something like this, right? It changes. It just becomes less. It's still cycling, but it's not as less. It's alive too. And so when you come out here, when this little flag is waving here, and remember, you're going to do some kind of plasma change to your background, right? That magic has happened, and so you have to break a few things. You don't have to break everything, but everything should have like a carbonization flash effect. Do you just replace the background out? And so in the direction here, this would be maybe another 4 seconds. So this would be like maybe 160 to 180 frames or something like that. And when the animators in the 20s and 30s were doing songs, they would say, all right, we've got 5-6 seconds here. And we know that this is going to happen on this beat. We know that this is going to happen on this beat. We know that all this stuff happens. This could be more freeform. Something crazy happens here, and then something happens here. And when the animators got a hold of knowing exactly that this was happening on frame 97, and this was happening on frame 121, this was happening on 135, they could go and write music. And they could time the music out precisely to what was happening on the screen. And in order to do that, they did what looked like music. It actually looked like music. So the animators would draw something like this, and then down here underneath it would be the actual musical staff. And they could actually write their little musical notes. They would write whatever key it was in, whatever flat was in, it was 4/4 time. And they would actually write their little music. And so it would sync with this. And on top of that, they would do like a drawing like this. They would do like little thumbnails on top of it. They were called beat sheets. We very rarely see these anymore. Do you want to take another screen capture of that?
Yeah. I got it.
So there was let me see if I can find it for you. I'm just going to clear this. Let me see if I can find it quickly. The historical, the one that is out there more than anything, it was called Shuffle Off to Buffalo. So let me put that one away. I went too far. No, that's not what I'm looking for. I'm just going to see if
There
this
are many
is.
people
I'm going to see if this is the one I'm looking for. Oh, it's a commercial. Hold on one
who
second.
misunderstand what fiction is. They'll say fiction is a bunch of lies.
Okay, so this is the one that this is the final video. And what I'll do is I'm just going to put that in the chat. I don't see my chat. Oh, there it is. So you can go ahead and grab that from the chat box. But let's go backwards and see if we can pull up the actual beat sheets. And it's been too long. Beat sheets. Let me put this. So this is, these are typical camera sheets right here. You've seen this before, hopefully.
Yeah.
right? But let's see if we can narrow it down. There was the one that I'm looking for looks just like music, and I'm not seeing it. Shuffle After Buffalo, beat sheets, 2D animation. I don't know. It could be that they were removed. There is one thing to think about though, in that this cartoon is really racist. Like they play on the stereotypes of all the different. The idea is that this old guy is in charge of the storks for a delivery room, and he sends out the storks all over the world. And for whatever ethnicity or culture comes in, they do this like goofball take on that culture, and it ends up reading as really racist. And even in this commentary here, they might talk about it, but there were some accompanying beat sheets that looked just like music. And I'm not finding it. So this is really close to the beat sheet. This is kind of what it looked like. But there was one other variation of this that had little drawings on top of it. Yeah, this is really close to what the beat sheets look like. No, and nobody uses it anymore. I'm in trouble with you because I'm telling you something that's so old, it's becoming wicked trivia, and maybe 30 years from now you're going to go, oh, I know that. My stupid instructor in May of 2021 went on for like 20 minutes about beat sheets, and you know, it was just a thing. But for you, it might make sense to think about your music production, your video production, just in terms of a beat sheet.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Long-winded thing there, just for sound and fury signifying nothing. All right, so Mark.
Hello.
All right, you're getting there. You're getting there. All right, so I'm going to give you another couple pointers, and then we'll take a break. So remember that I'm going to be really picky about the shapes of things. And so what you've got here is you've got a lot of repetitive distances here. And I think that you just need to be more lyrical about this. Just, it doesn't have to come from the center, but it's fine. You can make it a little bit off center, but again, think about what's going on here. It's steam. It's give yourself a variety of shapes. And just so not everything is repetitive in terms of distance and shapes and size.
My instinct is not to deviate drastically between shapes, because I'm afraid that'll just make it look like not animation, but just random. Like if I deviate too far, like I make one really weird shape and then another really weird shape, then it doesn't connect.
Well, I know, but you have to also be brave. As an artist, you always have to be brave.
Okay.
So the little blue suggestion that I drew for you here is superior to just this little gray worm that you've got coming out of this interior stalagmite.
Yeah.
And remember too that this, just like a lot of your classmates, you can choose to go in there, and once you've got it laid out, and you can choose to get rid of the connection points on a couple of them, just to give yourself a better variety. And then
didn't think of
thinking
that.
about how this works is that it does dissipate, it does dissolve into the air. And then for me, remember, as your effects instructor, you then animate the nodes. Those are the nodes on the right. These are the nodes on the left. And then it just becomes easier because you're going upwards. And it's something that we talk about every day, whether you're doing this in 8 drawings or 12 drawings or 16 drawings.
Yeah, I think I did my nodes wrong too. They go from right to left to right again. I didn't think of them going up like that. So
Yeah, they have to go up.
yeah.
Because you have to always think about what it is that you're animating. It is a thing of nature that we're doing. We are constantly referencing nature. All right, so I don't know if did you redo the smoke here?
The smoke was the one thing I didn't get to.
Okay, so
Unfortunately.
you have notes on that from
Yeah.
last week, and remember that the big hang up is that everything is an aesthetic, and so a variety of shapes. And it starts from your layout. And so this is a traditional just smoke here. And so just make it traditional. And remember that the danger here would be is that these things look like a snake has just eaten a bunch of rats, right? And so you don't want it to make it look like just a tube of rats. So you want to make it have a good variety of shapes in there, large, medium, small shapes. Breaking it up with highlights or shadows is definitely going to help. And remember, as soon as you put that shadow in there, it makes sense to animate it coming from somewhere. You can animate a little hole in it. That would certainly. So holes generally tend to look like that. And then go backwards, and there's the hole starting. There's the hole starting, and then up here it like kind of takes over. And then you're in trouble with your water. For anything, you've got 3-4 effects happening here. Remember the ripples are going to look better if you use your proper perspective. And so get this little thing to be more oval. You've got a horizon that's about right here. And in that horizon sets up your perspective grid, and this little pool and the ripples in it should be more in perspective. For your water, to go all the way back to your traditional Joe Gilland water, right? And get the cone to come up. And it's okay if these things are in the way, but you're going to have to really explore what the shape of this water looks like. These little scrubbly little digital stylus pencil lines aren't making me happy here. So go back to it. I think that so the other thing is, make sure that if there's a perspective here on this ripple, that remember that perspective grid is everywhere. And this is just part of it, right?
Yeah.
And so that means that when you get to any of these bubbles, that they have a sense of perspective too. And what you've got with these little bubbles, they all look really flat. So make sure that you can go back in and touch those up, and so that the bubble starts to grow and it actually looks like something, and then it breaks apart. Or did you intend this to be fire?
That's fire. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Well, you could do both. You could do a bubble here. You could do like a a bubble here and a bubble here, and then make these fire. Something like, or you want to take a screen grab of that?
Yeah,
All right, and then I think that you should have Kool-Aid Man break through the wall right here.
of course.
Something like that. Okay, you got your screen grab?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. All right, so I'm gonna refresh this page. All right, there's nothing new in that folder. All right, so let's take a 20-minute break. And for all of you who are working in the background, please put something in that folder so I can give you a critique on it. 20-minute break, please. Coming back in. Javon, if you are there, I sent you a note in the private chat. And you can respond to it just in the chat. That would be great. All right, so we've done a couple of critiques so far today. Put something into the files for 14 May folder, and I will look at them. Please. Or you could share your screen, but it's better with the Zoom if you allow me to play it. There won't be as much of a delay or much of a drag. How's it going, Matt? Where's your
Pretty good.
Where's your feline studio assistant?
You just missed her.
Dang. Yeah. There's a little squirrel that comes out in the garden behind my apartment. And a couple weeks ago, I decided to see if the squirrel would eat a couple of peanuts. And have you ever given a squirrel a peanut?
I can't say that I have.
This squirrel went crazy. He was like, "Oh my God!" He was so happy. He was so happy that he came back like 3 more times that day.
I'm sure.
And I'm like, I should be really careful because peanuts are kind of fatty. I could see this like squirrel becoming really obese. Could see, me inadvertently writing a cartoon that's going on in my backyard. And just yesterday, he wasn't coming around. He wasn't here until like 4:30 or 5 in the afternoon. And when he showed up, the crows came with him. And he could only get like one little peanut before he got chased away by the crow. And then just a couple of heartbeats later, the raccoon showed up too. I had a whole zoo in my backyard yesterday.
It's pretty cute. Feeding the animals, huh?
Yeah, feeding the animals. A regular zookeeper. All right, is anybody dropping files in there? Alex, you? What?
Oh, I need 2 minutes.
You didn't what?
I'm running my homework and then I will upload. Need 2 minutes.
Put it in there and I'll give you a critique. All right, being a little bit didactic here. One of the things that I want to do with this is to make sure that these little spikes on the right, these guys right here, don't look like pencil lines. And I think that I mentioned this to you last week, that what I was considering doing was copying and pasting all of the elements into a new layer and blowing them out with a bunch of nodes. I'm going to do that right now. All right, so what I've done there is just copy and pasted everything individually. And remember that I could have shift selected all of this and said copy the cells from the timeline, and then gone down here and said paste the cells from the timeline with a right click on my mouse, copying and pasting. But the instant you do that, they become symbols in your library, and what you do to one happens to the other. And so in order to keep things manipulatable and so that I can change it when I'd like, I'm going to just copy and paste. So these two layers are identical, but on the spikes layer node, I'm going to add a node. So I'm going to go to my library, my node view, same thing, select all, spread everything up by 25 pixels, move around so you can see the layer you're working on. I'm working on R spikes nodes. That would be this one. I'm going to pull that out. And I'm going to put a transparency node. I'm going to put a glow node and a blur. We'll see how that works. So 3 things right there. Let's stack these up. And just another reminder for everyone. I know I said this before, but I believe on a PC, all you have to do is kind of move this around inside that line and it just kind of does its thing. But on a Mac, it doesn't work quite the same.
I believe I just upload
Okay.
the homework.
All right.
Thank you.
I'll come back to this then. Well, lots of fun stuff happening with that one. Okay. All right, so a couple of things to think about here. All right, I have some suggestions for you. Looks like you've taken this spaceship and just copy and pasted it
Yes.
to get it to move. Okay, so I mean, that's fine. Remember that you could use the move tool if you wanted, and using the move tool, do you remember how to do that? So just within this file right here, hold on a second, I have to get out of my mode here. I'm just going to do something off the stage. So I'm just going to make a new layer here. And this is going to be move. And I'm just going to move an object. So in this move layer, on the very top, I'm just going to give myself an object. I'm going to give myself a little circle. And I don't want it on this. Well, that's fine. I'm going to put it on frame 1. So on frame 1, I'm just going to make myself a little oval. It's sitting there. It's not doing anything. I'm going to go all the way out to frame 80. And I'm going to extend the exposure to frame 80. So now it's just sitting there, it's doing nothing. So what I want to do right here is I want to add a keyframe. So I'm going to right click and say insert keyframe, just like this. And I'm going to go out to the very end of the timeline and do the same. God damn it. And do the very same thing. I'm going to right click and say insert keyframe. And when you do that, remember, this gives you that in-between line. In Harmony, that black line there means that right there means something is in between. And remember that on this file, there's a keyframe right here because of my layout. I rotated. Remember, I drew this thing and I rotated it because I wanted the line to be straight. And that automatically gave me a keyframe. But for this one, these keyframes are going to actually mean something. All right, and so in order to get this to move, so you want it to move from here to over to here over the course of 80 frames. And with this little running guy turned on, the animate frame and the transform tool, with this frame right here, now you're going to just grab this. And I'm going to constrain the direction. So I'm just going to move it till it goes out to here. And once you do that, you've created a motion. Did you follow along, you? So you just created motion right there. And if I play this, it's just going to move from screen right to screen left to screen right. It's just going to move at an even pace. All right, so once you've done that, you can put your mouse anywhere in the middle of this in between and use this tool right here, which is your ease tool. But so I don't see anything right here because it's in the middle. I'm going to put my cursor right on the first keyframe and do it again. And now I see my curve. Now, the reason that I did that is I always like doing things wrong to show you the error. Oh, Billy, you know, I tried to do what you did, but I didn't see anything in this tool. You know what I mean? And the reason for that is because you actually have to pick the keyframe in order to ease out of it. So what you're doing here is you're on frame 1 and you're going from whatever coordinate you are here to this X coordinate over here over the course of frames. And so if you grab this and just make it a gentle curve and say apply, that's already there. And you're going to close this. And you're going to go to the last keyframe and do the same thing. And now, hold on a second. Harmony does not like the magic mouse button. All right, so now this is what that curve looks like when this key is looking at it. And now, so I'm going to do ease into the move and ease out of the move. So now I've got a nice gentle S-shaped curve. I'm going to hit apply and close. And now if I play this, you'll see that it speeds up in the middle and slows down at the end. Watch. See, it's just that simple. It's really just that simple. And you can use that in any kind of fashion that you want for your little spaceship. So having said that, you could move him instead of just copying. Copying, pasting has its advantages, but moving has that advantage of the ease in and the ease out tool as well. All right. I think I want you to think about this spaceship and how it's built. I think that I like your little sketch up here, but I'm not really convinced about what you're doing with the actual device right here, the actual the actual spaceship itself. So I think that you might want to just jump over and explore it. It might look more interesting if the spaceship has more of a frisbee kind of shape to it. And then you put this dome on the top. And then you think about putting these lights along and put like one right here. And get the little feet to be splayed. I think it'll look better just in terms of what a comic book looking spaceship might look like. You know, and it's at that point where you can actually put like two little guys in there with their little antenna, right? So try something like that, you. And then when the gun comes out, you know, think about it just in terms of silhouette. Think about how much you can get on this thing in order to read for it to be a silhouette. Okay, so you don't have a lot of progress here from last week. I think I remember giving you a critique saying, okay, well, you've got this campfire and this little pool here, so you can start to really think about what this background looks like. And I know that this isn't that much of a difference from what you've already got. And I think that, again, I've already kind of said some of this, but that's okay. But think about what is going on here in terms of the composition of your background. So I think that if you're doing clouds like this, you can use that technique that I just showed you in order to get these clouds to move from off. Well, it depends on how much time that you have, but from whatever, they can move from one position to another, going from here that way. All right, so I'm going to play this just a little bit more time. All right, and so you're still working here. Do you have your notes from last week?
Yeah, but I create a slash, so I think I just run it. I didn't run the whole timelines. I think I need to run it again.
I'm not sure what that means. Does that mean you only showed me part of it?
Yes.
I don't know why you would do that. Why would you do that?
I don't know because I'm not sure how I already run it, but that stopped just in the middle.
Oh, I see. Okay, no, that's fine. All right, so I would suggest making this blast out here a little bit more substantial, just so that your audience can see it a little bit more. Because right now you have, it's just kind of limited, make it bigger. And then I think that the other thing that you want to do is get some sort of curve, just kind of like I did on my orb thing. And that this is all fine. You've got the plasma blast happening, right? But get the center of the plasma blast to have this like sine wave, this like oscillation on it. It'll make it look a little more interesting. Remember that this node right here is going to move from here all the way to here, and so you're only going to need a couple of them. So, and the idea would be is that thing that we talk about almost religiously is just to think about what it sounds like. You know, it's a plasma blast. And so consider just, it's going to move, if this node here is in this keyframe, and then it's here in this keyframe as well, if you put it right in the middle, it'll only move back and forth. So you at least have to do it 2 more drawings. And so that this node is going to move out to here, this move flattens out, and then you do it 1 more time so that it moves out to here. And then so it has that apparent motion from right to left. All right, so I think that what might be fun is if you have this thing is going to start the little campfire. I think that it might be really fun that as long as this thing is now an electrified orb, you know, it's now magic, right? I'll just put M for magic. Is that this fire in your timeline can certainly just be 10 or 12 frames or something like that cycles for the rest of your narrative clip. I think that's fine. But what might be really fun is the initiation of the fire itself. And so try something like, once the orb hits it, it has like a little plasma blast itself. And I'm doing this so that the little spines of the plasma are visible. And so if you did them on top of the little pieces of wood, you wouldn't see them. But just do something like a little flash, a little plasma flash. And then in this area right here, I think it might be fun to do, you just put like a little flash mat, for lack of a better word. And then you do the white, black, white, black, white here. So it's like, it flashes. And for here, you can put a note on this, just kind of like I'm going to do here in just a minute, so that it's not completely opaque, that there's maybe a 50% transparency on it. And then you could have magic on this outside. There could be pixie dust on the outside of this. All of that is just really quick. It's white, black, white, black, white. Each one of these white, black, white, black, white flash mats, right, can grow a little bit. So they can start out really small, white, black, white, black, you know what I mean?
But the background is still there.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So you start out with a white with this guy right here, and then you do the black, and then you do this white, and then you do this black, and then you can go to the next one, which is just a little bit of white out here that it just goes away. It just dissipates. And again, you could put a note on that. Just for something different before the fire starts. Just before your traditional fire starts. And I'm kind of leaning it to the right there. Remember that once you do that, you're going to need some sort of smoke. It doesn't have to be completely like all the other stuff that we did. It can just be a little bit more simple. But I think that you owe it to the fire to do something like that. All right, and then I forget how you were going to incorporate this exploding bomb over here.
I will probably create a stone, like the hot stone, and then jump out of the fire and then hit the bomb, and then the bomb explode.
Okay. Make your water so that it looks, the water splash looks something like this. Right? Make it awesome. Make the water splash awesome. Right? All right, you want to take a picture of that? Got it? Okay.
Yeah, I already created the water splash. Just I just uploading
Oh, all right.
the new version.
You put it in the same folder? Oh, there it is. Okay, that looks all right. Yeah, that looks good. That looks good. Make it a little bigger. And you know, that's a really easy thing to do, right? Do you remember how to do that?
Enlarge it.
Larger, bigger.
Okay.
So, and you remember how to do that?
Can you show me again?
Yeah, it's the simplest thing. So in Harmony,
Uh-huh.
you pick a layer that you want. You just say, okay, I'm looking at this layer right here. And you just select the first frame of the layer of the elements that you want. And you click this button here and you hold it down and you say reposition all drawings. And once you do that, you get this. And then just grab the corner and hit shift to constrain. And then you just make it a little bigger. And then that happens for everything on that timeline.
Yes, got it.
Okay, that it's the simplest thing and it's wonderful. It's a really great thing. All right, so I see that the orb has become energized and it starts the campfire and it does this. But how do you get the bomb to explode?
Yeah, I plant a small, like a hot stone jump from
Oh,
the
okay.
fire.
Now I remember suggesting that you do something different with this. What did I say? I forget what I said. Do you want to remind me what I said?
Yeah, last time you told me I should create like a box
Oh yeah.
and try to make another stuff.
And it wasn't a traditional explosion, right? It was more like a magic explosion. You know, now that I said that, it might be kind of fun to do something completely different. So on that idea is that if you have this bomb, right, and you can play with the idea that this says TNT, right? Trinitrotoluene. It's a traditional cartoon bomb, and do the thing where you've got the fuse, right? Right, and then when the fuse dissipates, there's that little moment where there's like a little bit of smoke, and then a pause, and then instead of an explosion of a bomb, right? Instead of just a traditional explosion, you could do butterflies. So instead of the white, you could do the white, black, white thing, right? You could do the white, black, white. But the idea would be is that it doesn't explode anything except butterflies. And they all just go flipping out and flying around. Try that. And it doesn't have to be a lot of them, just maybe like four or 8 or something. Just for something completely unexpected.
Yes.
All right, thank you, you.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Oh, okay. I want to make a screenshot.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's good. It's recorded.
Okay, yeah.
So you can go to YouTube later
Yeah.
on today.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right, anybody else? Rodrigo, you want to show me anything? Matt? Guys are working quietly, trying not to be too disruptive. Let me know if you I'm gonna put nodes on my little thing here. All right, so spike nodes, I've got my nodes in place already. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go to the timeline here where I can see, I'm gonna go to the render mode and I'm gonna see what it's looking like here. So now remember that what I've got is 2 complete layers. I've got this purple and this pink that are selected. And in this node, I'm going to take the transparency. It's set at 50 already. I'm going to open up the glow. I'm going to turn the intensity of the glow up to about 4. And I'm going to wait a minute for it to process, and I'm going to make it even more. I'm going to take it to 8 by just clicking and holding and dragging. And I'm going to pull it up even more. And I'm going to pause right there and go to the blur and give it a blur of about 3. And I'm going to take the intensity of the glow up even more. And even more. And even more. All right, and I'm going to go to transparency. I'm going to leave the transparency about 50. And so I'm liking that, but remember that once you've put these nodes in there, you can't see what it looks like when you play it. Toon Boom just does not have that capacity. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to render 80 frames to see what it looks like. Export movie. It's going to be an MPEG-4 desktop movie. I'm going to send it to my desktop. I'm going to save it as 44 MPEG movie. I'm not saving this. I just want to see what it looks like. So I'm going to go from frame 1 to frame 80. I'm going to say okay. It's going to render for a moment. It is fully rendered. So let's take a look at what it looks like. So I can see it there. You know, it's nice. I like that. In my presentation here, I have my layout turned on, which is kind of obnoxious, but that's okay. So that application of those nodes worked pretty well. All right, so I'm going to put this away. All right, so the next thing that I think that I would like to do is, you know, I did talk about the idea of in this plan that the left electrode energizes the right electrode, and then I have my flash, the thing you just saw me doing, happening. And I recall that this pathway was supposed to be the orb. So this thing becomes an orb and then just goes and actually moves along the pathway. But I think that what I would like to do is make sure that you are all, because a whole bunch of you are doing the little steam right there. And I'm just going to take a little block of time and do the little demo for you about this steam. So even though I had not intended it, I'm gonna put a little steam layer right there. So this is just going to be steam. And this, again, this is just completely out of context from my original plan. I'm going to leave my layout on. The plasma blast has happened. And I'm just kind of orienting myself here. So it's happened, right? It's happened already. And I'm going to give myself 4 or 5 frame, 8 frame delay. Remembering that 8 frames is a beat. And in animation, each second of animation at 24 FPS is a beat. So I'm going to pick a new color. And remember, that's always a good habit to get into. It's just whenever you put a new element on the stage, give yourself a new color so that you can manipulate it independently. And I'm just going to call this S_1 for Steam 1. And I'm just going to give it some medium gray. Just as a general artistic reminder for everyone, remember that this color palette here it's the most awesome thing I've ever seen in my whole life, right? And that when you're manipulating colors in the gray palette. If you see RGB values that are all the same, that is automatically gray. No matter what you're doing, look. Everyone look at the monitor. All those RGB values are gray, and all those numbers are the same. See them? So it's like the matrix. If you ever see RGB values and they're all looking like the same numbers, then you've got gray. Then you've got gray. All right, so I'm going to get this thing to happen. I've got my layout turned on. This is probably going to be on 4s eventually, but let me just start it. So I'm going to get my first little bit of smoke to come up there on the timeline. Let's just go ahead and put it on 4s to begin with. I'm going to turn my onion skin on. I'm going to open this up a little bit more. There we go. All right, so now what I'm going to do is not only am I going to raise this up because the idea is the smoke was rising, but I'm going to try to hit this node right here in about 8 drawings. So I'm going to start at the same point and I'm going to rise it up a little bit. And then I'm going to continue it moving to the left. And then I'm going to get this to rise up a little bit more. There we go. And then on 4s. So again, it's rising and continuing up. All right, hope you can follow along with what I'm doing here. I'm just giving one track for like the inside and one track for the outside, and I'm trying to hit my layout. And so the smoke is rising, and I put that little mark right there because that makes the onion skin just a tiny bit brighter so you can actually see what you're doing. And so what I intend to do here is kind of what I suggested a little earlier, and that is that I would go in here and get this working and see if the animation is timed okay and whether I like it. And then I would go back in and then very strategically erase little bits and pieces. All right, so now I've hit my layout. And this is, I would consider rough, and so that I might go back in here and redo a cleaner version of this. Let's take a look at what we've got. It's on 4s. All right, so it's starting to work actually pretty well. I'm just going to continue it. And I'm going to stop it. So right now I'm going to try to hit this 180 frame right here by stopping it. So right about here, I'm going to let this be the end of it. It's continuing to rise and get bigger left and right. And then I'm going to go back in and strategically erase little bits. Hopefully this will help everyone that's got the idea of doing little steam bits. All right, once again, make a mark so you can kind of see where you are. This is dissipating right here. It's continuing to move up. Organic kind of shape there. Okay, so I'm gonna accelerate this just a little bit. And I'm gonna, oops. I think I had the wrong, no, I had the right pen. All right, so once again, I'm just looking at the bright red spot and I'm getting the line to rise and have a certain volume to it. And again, I would just consider this my rough. I'll go back in and put a cleaner version of a line on top of it. All right, and again, I think that I didn't make it inherently obvious, but what I'm doing right now is animating straight ahead. And so instead of planning and doing in-betweens and breakdowns and in-betweens, I'm technically animating straight ahead, which is fine. You can do that. I think that it's a legitimate, it gives you more of an organic feel for the placement of your elements on the stage. It's not so rigid. As long as you can kind of concentrate on seeing what the elements are doing. Gives you kind of more of a free form, organic kind of feel to it. And again, the theory here is that I'm setting the keyframe so I can see where my onion skin was just by making a mark off the stage. And now I'm just kind of getting it to rise up and to oh, you know what? I'm talking while I'm doing this. So this one should be more like this. And then one more. Just, oh, we don't have any more frames. All right, so let's take a look at what that looks like. I'm going to save this and play it. All right, so that timing is actually pretty good. I hit it pretty close to what I wanted. Let me make it a little smaller. I'm going to turn my layout off. Let's take a look at what we've got. All right, so now let's go back in and strategically erase a bunch of stuff. So I'm gonna, so now with my, now that I have my keys established, I'm just gonna bring my eraser tool into play. I haven't used it in a while, so I'm going to check my tool properties. And 30 pixels is way too big, so I want to take this down to about 8 pixels. And I want a hard eraser. Yeah, I want a hard eraser just for this one. All right. So now that my keys are established, I don't know what I did there. Let me see what's going on. Oh, that's weird. Looks like I created a blank keyframe. That's okay. All right, so my G key going straight ahead, G key, G key, G key, and I'm going to zoom in on this just a little bit. Going forward. All right, so right about here, I think I want to let loose this guy. And remember that once you do this, you're going to have to follow through on the animation. So I'm just going to do 2 at a time. These 2 little pieces I'm going to let loose. They're breaking apart from each other, right where they're crossing over. And they're also kind of moving up into the timeline as well. I'm just going to do 2 of these at once. It's kind of hard to follow anything more than that. All right, and I'm kind of noticing that I'm creating a negative space right there as I'm doing this. And I'm hoping that that isn't going to be too egregious. I hope that it's not going to look too weird, too aesthetically strange. And I think that what I mean by that is that the smoke is supposed to be moving. It's supposed to be actually traveling along this as a pathway. And I've kind of ruined that idea by keeping the negative space in the same area. And so we'll see what happens here. I'm going backwards, forwards, forwards. Let's just continue it. I'm gonna move this one to this upper part here, just to see what happens, and go backwards and kind of get rid of that piece. Just a little bit of intuition on my part, and I'm allowed to do that. All right, we're getting towards the end of it, so I haven't done a lot of erasing, just some strategic little parts going backwards and backwards. So now I'm actually introducing a third one by going backwards. Going backwards, introducing a third one, and stopping the third. Oh, continue this one. And then forwards. And I can see it's working. I can see just by going through my keyframes that it's actually working. All right, so let's see what that looks like in terms of time. And remember, that's on 3s, actually. I thought it was on 4s. That's on 3s. Yeah, I think that there's some places in here where the negative space is just a little obvious. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of repair it a little bit just by going straight ahead. The one thing I'm going to do is take this, I'm going to give myself a whole bunch more frames, and I'm going to actually slow this down just a little bit. So I'm going to put this on 4s, next one on 4s, and I'm just going to go through and put all of those frames where I just drew on 4s. And I see that I need to F5 my layout. We're going to go to 140, 139, F5. So I'm going to F5 the layout, go back and look at it, just because we have a new set of timing. Yeah, that's okay. It's working right there. All right, so now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna repair it just a little bit with my with the negative space. So going forwards in time, I'm gonna repair this one. I'm just gonna repair it. And the reason why I'm doing that is just because this one caught my eye. It was obvious, like it was just negative space, and I didn't like that. So I'm just gonna repair it. I don't want to Command Z it, I just want to repair it. All right, so I only did a few lines right there. Let's see what it looks like. All right, so now I want to repair the one on the left. So this one here, and I'm gonna I'll show you how to fix it here in just a moment as well. So going backwards. So this one I'm going to keep. This one I'm going to keep. This one I want the negative space to move to the left. I want it to actually, oops, I didn't pick up my eraser. So I'm going to get this to move to the left. I believe the keyboard shortcut for this is Alt P for paintbrush. I forget. And Alt E for eraser. So I can go back and forth. I turned everything off. Hold on a second. Okay. So once again, I'm just going to figure out using my flipping. I'm going to go through it. So I want this negative space here to actually move to the left. I want it to move with the particles that are, so I'm repairing it, and I'm going to leave that one where it is. And I'm going to go backwards, and it looks like I might have Command Z'd it just a little too far. So I'm just kind of repairing this one. This one's going backwards here. I noticed that, so I'm going to tweak this just a little bit. All right, so I'm going to go here. This one is okay, so I'm going to now use my erasing tool, and I want the particle to move to the left, so it's going to actually travel along, moving with it. So that one should be okay. That one should be okay. All right, so very quickly, quick repair there. just on that negative space. So I'm looking to see if that works. So I'm going to be a little bit more definite about it so that I can see it a little better. So I think it was working. All right, so looks like we have this F5. Oops. All right, let's take a look. So once again, I'm just doing that spindly smoke right there. And that's starting to work pretty good. Again, I have it on 4s as opposed to 3s where I timed it out. And it's completely independent, and it's a just a quick little demonstration for you about how to get the smoke working, the little steamy smoke working. All right, so one of the things that I'm noticing, I'm just going to do one more look at this, is that I'm going to pause it right here, that I kind of noticed that it doesn't, it kind of follows this, oops, I didn't want to do that. It kind of follows the a triangle, and it's just a little bit too geometric. It's just a little bit too safe. So what I'm going to do here is go back, and I'm going to find a keyframe, this one, where I can add a little bit of extra steam on the right that just kind of helps break up the idea that it's in a triangular point of view. So I'm just going to animate this straight ahead. That was weird. Hold on a second. I don't remember drawing that one, but that's okay. That's weird too. All right. So what my little comment about the weird thing was that I believe that there's some symbol action happening here, because that should not be there. So I don't think I copy and pasted. I don't think that there's any gnomes in this one, but that was an anomaly. I did not want that to happen. All right, so I might have, when I trying to Command Z it, I might have disrupted that file a little bit. All right, so you can see that little area right there, that with the little extra steamy bits, was actually starting to work pretty well. Although there's a couple pieces that are going backwards because of the copy and paste issue. Let me test this by putting one of those over here on this keyframe. I'm going to pick a different shape. This is just going to be like a little peanut shape with a circle. Next keyframe. Peanut shape with a circle. Oh, it's moving. Peanut shape with a circle. Peanut shape with a circle. And it's dissipating. Now it goes away. Goes away. All right, let's take a look. Keyframes. All right, that looks fine. Another one. So let's get, so this is already looking okay, but let's get maybe something happening right here. This is a little bigger one. And as it's going out, it's going to break apart. And dissipate at the same time. See, that's the weird one. That should not be there. All right, yeah, there is a weird frame in here. But that's okay. Let me go back to our class. Refresh this. Let me see if anyone's got something for me to see. I don't see anything new in here, anybody. Matt, you have anything for me? Alex? Rodrigo, anything that you want me to look at? Put it in that folder.
Nothing at the moment.
Okay. Sharon? Shane? Fatima? All right, so what I'm gonna do then is I'm gonna keep working in the background right here. I'm gonna try to figure out why that little particle is stuttering. I'm very worried about that little stutter that I created. Yeah, Toon Boom is doing something. All right, I don't know exactly what's going on. All right, so now what I'm going to do is, again, this is rough. I would finalize this and go back in and do a cleanup on another layer. So, oops. Oh no, that's right. All right, so what I want to do is I want to make sure that this S wiggly snake shape isn't just alone by itself, and that these little puffs aren't alone by themselves either. So aesthetically, what I think I'm going to try to do is tie them together with a moving little trail behind it. And again, I've established my keys, so I'm just going to find a good place to establish like a little spindly trail. And I think that this keyframe right here might be a good, I'm gonna go back to this one. So I'm just gonna do like a little shape like that. And I might go back and do another one because it's odd sometimes to have them live by themselves. So this is gonna move and animate up and around with it. So it's like a little highlight or a little shadow that is animating with it. So I'm just doing one at a time. And you have to evaluate this as you're going along. You don't want those two things to cross over with it, it'll interfere. And that's gone. Let's test that, see what it looks like. All right, so I like that. Let's find another place where we can do another one. So let's go backwards a couple keyframes. We don't want them to start on the exact same frame. So maybe this frame right here, we'll put like this shape. And let's continue to animate that straight ahead. So it'll be just behind this one, this little piece, and in front of it. So this piece is going to go up, but our spindle is going to move independently. It's going to keep moving like almost like it's sentient, almost like it's thinking. It's going to just keep moving around while the other stuff just goes up. And this is the easiest way to do it because then You're just animating it straight ahead. So that is a problem right there. It looks like, I drew this, but it ended up being on the wrong keyframe. This is not right. Strange. I don't think I've seen Toon Boom do that before. All right, so let's take a look at what we've got. Yeah, it's looking pretty good. I noticed that about right here, I'd like to see something else right here. So I'm going to go backwards a couple keyframes, and it would be this one. So on this one, I'm just going to add a small, a medium, and another small clump. And I'm going to animate that going up, small. And remember, this one doesn't move. Medium, small, small, medium, small, small, medium, small. Changing a little bit. So that keyframe is screwed up right there. All right, so hopefully I've given you all an idea of how to animate that spindly smoke straight ahead. Again, I think that you should all be able to do this. The idea of looking at the layout and saying, you're going to go from this node into this node, from this node into that node, and then on the left side, the same thing going from here to there to there, and very carefully planning it out. Sometimes it gets a little rigorous, sometimes it gets a little mechanical. And so the way I did it here was just, I drew that little layout and I knew where I was going. And I just started drawing the smoke starting and hitting that keyframe. And then right there, I was dissipating it. And I think it's working just for a quick little half-hour demonstration. I would definitely go back in and clean this up, that little spindly smoke thing on its own layer, just to make it look good. Sharon. It's got two things for us to look at. All right, so this is just your layout. Sharon, is your microphone not on?
Hello.
Yes, hi.
Hi.
Do we see this last week? Is this pretty similar?
Yeah, that's just the thumbnail.
Just the layout, okay.
Yeah.
And then this is the beginning of your effects. I think I just killed let me refresh the school site. All right, so your character on top of it, I'm gonna go back over here really quickly. So something comes up from the frog and goes over here.
It's coming out from the other jar.
Okay.
Um,
All right, well, your illustration looks really great. But I would like to make a comment on these little bubbles. I think that they're too fast.
okay.
What I think that I'd like you to work on is the lightning is okay. In your timeline, you have everything all the way out. Well, right now you've only got 4 seconds, which is somewhere around 96 frames. So take this out to like 172 or 172 or 190 frames, and just get the lightning to happen like here, and then maybe a different lightning that's just faster right here, so that it doesn't repeat.
Okay.
In animation, you don't want that like repetitive thing happening. But with
Mhm.
the bubbles, I think the bubbles can be a little slower. And I think that what you can do is you can, hey, I wanted that to be blue. I think that they could be bigger, just so we can see them a little bit more,
Okay.
and let them kind of have a track that goes, left and right just a little bit, and let them rise up before they pop. And don't be afraid to use this little area right here. All right, and then something's going to come out and come over here, and this is going to be like a little plasma explosion.
Yeah.
All right, and then you've got the lightning and the window. You've got your character's scepter. And what were you going to do with here? This is just going to be magic, right?
Yeah.
Does this character animate?
If I don't have time, I'll probably just like illustrate it inside.
Yeah, I would say probably prevent you from doing anything except this is just a study in effects animation, not character animation. So you can leave this guy static.
Mhm.
That'll be fine. If you want him to get him to blink, that would be fine. That means they're alive. But what are you going to do with this cool effect right here?
I'm thinking about lightning or like fire, kind of.
Or like an orb?
Yeah, like an orb thing.
And what is it? What is it? So the orb is there, it's doing something. It's going to be in this area right
Mhm.
here. Is it gonna do anything? Is it gonna create any effect itself on the stage? Or is it just gonna sit there? It's gonna sit there being all cool all by itself.
I think it just sit there.
All right, that's fine. I'm just checking with you.
Okay.
Sorry, I just ate an Altoid. I sucked a part of the Altoid voice where it's not supposed to go. All right, so I think that what might be really fun here is that this is the orb. And this is bubbles. And then you've got like a little magic. I'm just going to put the M right here for whatever happens here. So remember to include pixie dust and little spirals, right? And so when we were doing our pixie dust was falling. And so I think that this is just an explosion of pixie dust, right? So just think about it in terms of just a dust cloud. Just
Okay.
that goes from the center and it radiates out from the center, and it kind of just encompasses this kind of area right here, just like that. And maybe it falls a little bit down as well, you know, something like that. But as the little particles move outwards, then they disappear. So
Okay.
remember when we were doing our pixie dust started and disappeared as they were falling down. Here, yours are going to disappear as they're moving out from the center of this little magical explosion here. And then I think the only thing that you really need is go in there and think about just some magical wispy smoke like we just did. Right? And they can be on top or below the bubbles. And it might be fun to do one, just like I did in my demo. And you've got space for one, and let that kind of go away, and then just do another one that's a little smaller. That kind of goes in front of your frog. Is it a frog or an alligator?
Alligator.
So consider doing one like that, and then
Mhm.
another one like this. So they start. They're not cycling the whole time. They just like I did. They start and do their thing, and then this one starts and does its thing. Illustration is great. Make sure your effects complement the illustration, or else it'll look really weird.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
it would be really weird if your effects sucked, right? You
Yeah.
don't want that. So you spend a couple hours rendering this out. Make sure that the other stuff looks good too.
Okay. Thank you.
Good start. You're welcome. All right, so just frame by frame here, what I'm going to do is clean up. I'm going to just give myself a nice vector line on top of what I've got here on a new layer that's steam rough and steam clean. I'm going to pick a new color. And it looks like I did too many. Command Z. So I'm going to just keep it, I'm going to put a little bit of yellow into this. And remember that I can always go back and change that. All right, there we go. Oh, that's okay. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn my stage so I can draw a little easier. Just right on top of all these keyframes, exactly what I've got. And so I'm gonna, oops, I thought I was in Photoshop there for a moment. Okay. All right, I'm gonna use my brush tool because I want a little wispy look to it. But I want to take my pencil size, my brush size down to about 8 or so, and just test the line. And I think that looks okay. I'm gonna bring it down. Oh, it said 10, 8. Yeah, 8 is good. So right here on this keyframe. And then what I'm looking for is a thin and a thick line. I'm looking at a nice flow. I'm thinking of keeping these shapes together so that I can, closed, so that I can paint it very easily. I'm thinking of the smoothness of these lines. One of the things that you probably have already discovered is that trying to do this kind of line with the pencil tool is difficult unless you pick the right brush. That's why I'm using the brush tool. And just a quick reminder that while I'm doing this, I kind of broke my own rule about drawing the parts in the same order, because your hands really, truly do have memory. And if you do the same kind of arcs in the same order, you're more likely, your hand is more likely to remember the pathways. Smooth. Next keyframe. Oh, I just drew that on the wrong keyframe. I don't know how I managed to do that. I drew that here. That's not where I wanted it to be. Another thing to think about here is that when you're using the brush tool, it gives you vectors on the outside and on the inside of the line. And you kind of have to make sure you scrub it like that right there, like I just did, to make sure that the line is going to close correctly. And I'm also thinking that, you know, this is looking a little thick right there. And I want to go back in there and tighten that up with a curve. The other thing I can do here is I could think, well, you know, I could clean up some of that by just putting a blur and a transparency node on this, which if it's steam, it should have some of that in there. I'm also seeing that the gray on the line that I'm trying to follow and the gray on the background are interfering with each other. And if I thought about it, I could just go back in here and turn my layout off. Might be a little easier to see the lines. It's at this point where I could also comment that if as long as you're going to put a blur on it, you also might want to try to find some irregular shapes, kind of curve it inside and outside. So not just like a perfect moon shape, but trying to find a little bit more of a organic, if you will. I don't want to always use that same term, but a less geometric shape. The thing would be is that if you spend too much time trying to animate this little exterior node and really, you know, futzing around with it and being really careful, if you blow it out with transparency and blur, you're not going to see it anyway. All right, so it's at this point in our keyframing that we started erasing and we started trying to find that little negative space. And so what you can do is you can kind of follow through with this and say, I'm going to clean this up quickly. And then in the front of your mind, you're going to go back in quickly after you're done with it and see if there's anything that's not quite following through on the animation, like that negative space right there. Like we took it in, we took it out, we put it back in, then we put in these little spindly things. But now that you're going to have a brighter line, which has got a brighter contrast against the darker background, they might show up a little more strongly. So you might have to go back in there and adjust them. Once you're adjusting them, keep in mind that you can get some of this to just be invisible with your nodes, and that you're going to feel the smoke rather than see all these little pieces. If you spend a huge amount of time on all these shapes and you want to see these shapes, then don't blow them out. And then don't get too crazy with the nodes. In other words, that if I have this outside exterior shape, exterior shape, exterior shape, if that doesn't animate correctly, then you can correct some of it. You can kind of fudge some of it by your nodes. You might want to keep some of the line work in here though. And you could do exactly what I had done with the blast on the orb, was to copy all of these, paste them into a new layer independently as objects on the stage so that you can operate an independent set of nodes and get a nice hot core with the line that you're cleaning up right here. And then on the copy, then you can go in there and hit the nodes and put the blur and the glow and the transparency behind it. I'm also, when I'm doing this, I'm also realizing that my pen was a little heavy, and that when I'm doing any of these shapes, I'm trying to give a very sharp end. Whenever there's a little smoky bit, that there's a little sharp end to it, because some of them were just a little too flat, a little too rounded. Like this one, I'm just gonna like pinch it out a little bit and make it sharper right there, because it is smoke. It is a form of steam. Don't you hate it when that happens? And the thing is I'm not even touching the button on my stylus. It might be that I'm squeezing the pen just a little too hard, but I know that I'm not squeezing the pen very hard at all, because if you do that, you will blow out your hand. You'll have repetitive stress injury like you wouldn't believe. So I'm always really careful to make sure that I'm not squeezing any of my pens or pencils or stylus, and always trying to make sure that I'm not repeating the same kind of motions with my hand, just to avoid any repetitive stress. All right, 1 second, everyone. I'm going to continue working that for just a second, but 1 second. All right, sorry about that. All right, just a couple more minutes here. Let me finish this keyframe. I was telling a client that I'm working for last week that I was concerned about aesthetics of this thing I was painting. And one of the reasons why I was concerned about it was because I was painting it at what would be 1200%. And it just wasn't looking exactly how I wanted it to, because it was like in the wrong place. Lines were showing up in the wrong place. And I told him I was going to redo it. He's like, why are you going to redo it? Because it was like you're in outer space. So let me take a look at what we've got. And I would just continue working on this. And it looks like I did 2 versions of the same one. So I have to like erase all this because I wasn't paying attention. All right, save this. Come back to our Zoom. All right, did anybody upload anything while I was doing that? Anybody? All right, so we have one more week. So the idea would be is that whatever you're going to put in that same exact folder, that same exact digital folder, get you into your finals week. Technically, during our finals week, if we were on ground, I know that it takes like a monumental effort to get downtown San Francisco. And a lot of times what I do is I have an open lab for the first hour or so, depending on how big my class is, an open lab so that you can work and polish and do final renders and put the files in a transfer drive and all that. But for here, I think that what we'll do is we can do a couple of things. We'll do the same kind of theory that we'll start our class at 9 o'clock on finals on the final day. And then you could do the same thing. You could do like a little spit and polish for the first hour. And then at somewhere around 10 o'clock on May 28th, which is our final day, we can start our presentations at about 10 o'clock or so. But at 9 o'clock, I'll open up the classroom. do attendance and then let you all work in the background. We could start our critiques somewhere around 10 o'clock. All right, everyone okay? If you need me, use my Yahoo. And I will see you next week. Remember to have as much as possible for me to see next week so that I can get you into your finals cleanly and artistically. All right, we'll see you next week, everybody.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.